Hello everyone. In this lesson we're going to talk about bar chords, chord inversions, and differences in approach to bar chords on the acoustic guitar versus the electric guitar. Because sometimes you don't always need a full bar chord, and targeting certain sections of bar chords that we already know can actually be more musical. We got a lot to get into, so let's get right into it. Let's start off with chord inversions. I want you to think about chords a little bit differently than perhaps you have been up till now. If you have been learning off of the internet or doing introductory videos, you're learning chords as a concrete shape. Maybe there's a second variation to that concrete shape, but you are learning and internalizing, and there's nothing wrong with this, that E is E, and that this is A, that this is G, this is D, this is C. Maybe we're tiptoeing our way into the bar chords at this point. That's great. Awesome. Cool. But this lesson is certainly designed for somebody who's starting off with kind of that knowledge, that chords are shapes. I make the shape, and that is going to give me the chord. What I want you to do is think about chords, to use a different analogy. I want you to think about it more as like a chemical formula or a set of ingredients or requirements that need to be met, but not necessarily in any specific order. If we're thinking about the composition of an atom, I mean, obviously we've got to have the nucleus in the center, but there can be some variabilities here, especially when we're talking about a molecule. The H, the 2, and the O, they can be kind of playing around with one another. That's what I'm talking about here. Order doesn't really matter. If we have a chord, let's take C major, that's a classic one here, C, E, and G. So long as I have the notes C, E, and G contained in the piece of musical sound that I'm currently playing, doesn't matter which construction, that is meeting the requirements for the chord C major. Now we might have an additional sub-labeling to it, and that's where inversions come in. So if we are building a chord out standard, we are going to order it by our first degree, the root note, so the C in C major. Then we have the third. This determines whether or not the chord in question is major or minor. So if you have a minor third, you got a minor chord, generally speaking. If you got a major third, you got a major chord, generally speaking. I'm aware you can comment down below on when a minor third does not result in a minor chord, diminished. When does a major third not result in a major chord, augmented? But I'm sure there's other examples as well. We're going to order this first, third, and fifth. That's the standard construction of it. But it doesn't actually really matter what the order is. Specifically, if we're talking no inversion, that just means that C's in the bass. Theoretically, it could be C, E, G, or C, G, E. Either construction is going to result in a no inversion chord. So we would just call that C major. First inversions take the third of the chord, the major minor determiner, if you will, and that places that interval in the bass. Now, that might start to sound technical, so I have a handy dandy graphic for you here. Get ready for it. Come on, brace for impact. No, it's so good. I did a good job. I am very good at art. And pointing. I am good at art, but also good at pointing and leaning into my visualization. See, that's not even going to end up being the thumbnail, but I did the pause. We have D major visualized here. Okay, so if I play D major, you've heard D major before, banger chord. List all your favorite D majors down below. Please like and subscribe for more D major. All I'm doing here, this top note is F sharp, right? And we know these two strings are both tuned to E, right? So any note that's on the top string can come down to the bottom string. And that's all that happens whenever you see this chord. This one seems to like stump people in a way that I think, in this case, using the shape is quite helpful. So when we're going G and you're going to F sharp over D, as you might see online, really this is just a D first inversion. You're just playing a D and you're putting the third, the determiner in the bass here. What's interesting about first inversions, harmonically speaking, is that they tend to, the first inversion tends to invert the vibe of the chord. And by this, I mean, it brings out a minor quality in a major chord and a major quality to a minor chord. So, I mean, honestly, one of the easiest examples of this we see is like something like Weezer in the bridge to Say It Ain't So. We come down to B, and then we go to this chord, which is actually a first inversion of F sharp major, but it sounds very tense. Especially if I start dropping intervals. Also, Hold On Loosely does this. So what's happening there? We're going E to actually a B to D to A. But you're getting that little bass walk down. And this is what I was talking about the intro to this segment, about inversions being more musical. We start finding ways of creating music in the bass patterns. This is known as voice leading. We can also do this with other intervals. We can do this in the middle and all of that sort of stuff too. I'm just giving you an intro primer, kind of building off of stuff you might already know here. Our second inversion places the fifth in the bass. It's an inversion, but it tends to be fairly stable sounding. So like there's not, by which I mean, there's not a massive amount of difference between, let's say, D major and then D major second inversion. Adds a little bit of beef to a chord, and it's really great for the bottom interval here as well. If we had an additional note like a seventh or a ninth, theoretically that would be your third and your fourth inversions. Not going to be covered here in today's lesson. I really want to kind of build off of the standard caged bar chords that we're familiar with and get some intervals on them so that you guys can go off and play around a little bit more with inversions and better label your chord progressions as well. Palette of chords here actually could be quite wide. That could be really overwhelming. So we're going to start off with some stuff that you already know in the cage system, but we should pause right now and talk a little bit about why less is more on the electric guitar. I'm going to send the window away for a moment. Say goodbye to the window. Say goodbye. It's going away. Yeah, I did it. Doesn't matter to me. I'll do it again if I want to. That's the power. So let's talk about why less is more on the electric guitar. The acoustic guitar and the electric guitar generate sound in different ways. No duh, right? But let's talk about the deeper implications of that no duh element. Well, one's electric, Chris, and the other one isn't. No, I get that. But like, we can actually really think about the math of how that sound is operating in two kind of distinct ways. When I play an individual string on an acoustic guitar, it makes a volume. We're not going to assign dBs to this. We're just going to call it X. Now, let's assume that that's the E string. So it's like the big X, right? And then every other string that I add on there is going to be like an addition problem. So we have X and then the A string, let's call it 0.85X. But so now we have, if I'm playing the E and the A string together, I have 1.85 sound, right? I know, super math here, right? And then the D string has a value, the G string has a value, the B string has a value. All of these strings have values. And to wit, you know this because a 12 string does have a louder sound production than a 6 string, provided the bodies are the same, asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. But like all things being equal, a 12 string instrument's gonna be louder. Some degree of throttling to the volume comes from the body, but generally speaking, we can think of each string as adding more sound. Whereas on the electric guitar, our electromagnetic pickups here serve as the ears of the instrument. And kind of like your ears. Actually, your ears are a great example here. Let's imagine all of a sudden we are watching this YouTube video in a restaurant. And same volume as it was, only now there's all these people around. All of a sudden the waiter comes by and he goes, "It seems like you need a fan, a really good fan." And then he comes out and brings a fan. And then the waiter's like, "No, no, no, you don't seem comfortable enough. Here comes our mariachi band." Your ears are now taking in all of these things. And yes, the volume is increasing as well. But really, we're getting to a point where your brain's not really making distinguishing moments in any one of these things. Oh, the mariachi band's certainly there. But like, are you really picking up the nuances of the overtones of the trumpet? When you're also hearing everyone in the restaurant, you have this annoying waiter who's asking you if you need anything else. And you're like, "I would like less things." And they're like, "No, no, no. Actually, we have more things still coming from the back." And you're like, enough. All right, cool. We're cool. So you're getting sonically overwhelmed. Our pickups kind of operate like our ears in that example. I liken this, I visualize this. I don't have a handy, amazing graphic there. I know. MS Paint, watch out. You got a new artist on the frontier here. But I want you to visualize it almost like a pie chart, right? Like, so there's a certain amount of stuff that can be going into the pie. And after that, we have to start slicing up the pie, and all of the information gets a little less articulate. And if you put too much information in, what ends up happening? Your pickups start breaking up. They get into overdrive. It's all the stuff that we like about electric guitar. So one string has a ton of definition to it. I had a second string in. You can still hear the first string, and the second string's in there. But it's a little less articulate. And it's going to continue to be like that the more strings I add in. Now, that issue gets compounded the more gain we add. We're not even talking about distortion yet. Distortion's going to add to that puzzle. But just the more gain we get, the more we get up to that hypothetical ceiling where we're getting into breakup and kind of like a informational compression of sorts that's happening through the pickups. So what do we need to do? We need to kind of be thinking about less clean. Like the more dirty it gets, the fewer notes. The cleaner we are, the more notes we can play. Like on a perfectly clean guitar, all these notes will be perfectly articulate. See, you can hear them all pretty good right now. At least I hope so in the video here. But even the second I put on some overdrive, okay, it's louder, but they get less articulate. You've got this high-end fizz, you've got this breakup. That's because our overdrive adds more sonic information into the mix. By sonic information, I mean more sound. But that also comes in the form of overtones. It comes in the form of frequency, excitement, a bunch of technical stuff I don't want to get too lost in right now. But as a result, kind of a good approach to doing bar chords, especially the more overdrive you're doing, is don't do bar chords. Think instead about breaking down these bar chords to the harmonies that are the most useful. For example, here we're in a light overdrive stage right now. That feels good. That feels good. And that doesn't feel overwhelming, but you can hear it starts to get a little bit muddy. So the question is, do I need the bass side of this? Because that feels nice and articulate. Or do I need the high stuff? Because while that can all still be there, there's a chance, especially the more overdrive you get, that's going to get less articulate. So here comes the tube screamer boosting into that light overdrive. Or that like overdrive / distortion, whatever you want to call it. Now, we got a lot of like fuzzy fizzy. So even a 3-note triad's getting a little woolly, if you will. Whereas any of those still have some articulation to them. And if we had the big muff here on the demo, I don't have it on the board, but if we had the big muff, at that point, man, 2 notes is even pushing it. You almost want to start thinking about using fuzz and that sort of stuff like a monophonic synthesizer with the ability to add a little bit of polyphony. And to this point, when guys who like to use fuzzes a lot, what they end up doing if they are in a high overdrive setting like this to get back to those chords is they roll off on their volume knob. Too muddy? Roll it back. And you'll see what I'm saying here too. You're in a way, the less information, the more, or the less volume or gain or whatever, the more information we can kind of pack in there is a good rule. Last part of this video here, I want to break down our 5 basic major chords that, of course, you can, derive your minor variants off of. But on the guitar, there are really only 2 chord voicings that get used with any regularity. So you're not going to have to study a million chord formulas. This should be pretty simple. We got the first one, which is the power chord plus a third. So the power chord, hopefully, if you're coming to this video, you're up at power chords here. And then we throw the third here. We know these as E-type, A-type, and D-type bar chords. Here's a power chord, third on top. Power chord, third on top. So that's one construction. Power chord plus a third. Easy enough. The other one is actually the bread and butter standard construction, the standard formula, which hopefully you will internalize here, which is the first, the third, the fifth, and then the first is on top. Actually, we play a power chord on top in a lot of cases. And that looks like G and C. So if I do G, let me roll off. See, it got inarticulate. And let me get my strap off here too. There we go. So 1, 3, 5, and then there's the octave. On top here, we might play a power chord, or we might hollow it out. I'll put those visualizations up for you real quickly here before we wrap up. If you're liking this video too, by the way, like the video. If you want more content like this, subscribe. Go ahead, leave a comment down below. Let me know what else you'd like lessons on. Someone asked earlier this week on how to do better bar chords, and that's part of the reason why I'm here right now. I am a guitar teacher, which means I'm trying to teach the students, and like that would make you the students, I'm pretty sure, if I'm doing the math on this correctly. All right, so we got our C-type and we got our G-type bar chords here. I've made the root positions squares. Get it? Square roots. I know. The jokes are really why you've come here. The guitar knowledge is why you stay, but you're here for the banger jokes. I know. So we've got the root, we've got the third, we've got the fifth and the octave, and then the third on top with C. And then over here with G major, bottom portion of this up to the G string is 1, 3, 5. And then we can look at that top portion. I labeled the third and the fifth there, but really we can look at that top section of the chord as like a power chord sitting on top of our standard construction of the major or minor. Now, if you move these thirds down half a step, you now have the minor inversion of these chords. Make sure, especially with C, make sure you move both thirds. That can make it for kind of a weird chord, and you're not going to be able to play all of this, but that is a way to get to these minor inversions as well. Then we have our power chord plus a third. So this is E, A, and D, and these are all basically the same. You got the square, you got your square root here at the base, and then you have your fifth, your octave, your third, your fifth, and then another octave here on E. We've got a fifth here on the A-type bar chord on the E string. Didn't label anything on the D-type one for the E string here, but just some couple of visualization examples here before I go. So like, let's say we're talking about how to use that E-type bar chord. You want a second inversion, and you want to give your hand a break? Instead of playing this? Oh, okay. Like, let's learn our lessons. We need less overdrive, right? We're all learning today. right, so I can just break that down here. Give your hand a little break. Instead of doing all that, is actually a great way to kind of get at this. You can do a minor chord like this, so it'd be like 7, 7, 5, 5. And even try playing around, like let's say I'm going to A minor to E minor, right? Having that E in the bass adds a little bit more musicality than having, like that E to A or the A to E is not nearly as strong as just having that E pedaling between those two chords, at least to my ears. Again, a lot of this stuff to a certain extent is taste. Really, this is just adding more spices to your spice rack. How you cook with them is entirely up to you. Anything else I really want to add in here? Also, we can take these chords, these bar chord shapes now, and kind of think of them going into the world that I'm in with elevated roots here. We can kind of think about this in terms of reggae chords, right? So if I do, instead of doing a full E, or even I've seen some ska bands where like homie's doing like bar chords, but he's just going. And the little Billy Gibbons in my brain pops up and is like, wow, you working so hard, man. Try breaking that down. Little tritone hum. Fun. All right, gang. If there's any questions that you guys have about bar chords, how to apply these partials, please go ahead, leave them in the comments down below. I always appreciate this stuff. If you like this, go ahead and like it. If you want more, go ahead and subscribe. If you want to support the channel, there's a couple ways to do that. I've got a Patreon. We are going to be posting content up there this month, so go ahead and subscribe. That's a great way to just support the channel passively too. You can also, in the bio, hit me up on Cash App. I'm always appreciative of tips as well. And if you want private lessons, go ahead and message me, I guess either through Cash App, or you can message me on the Patreon as well and sign up for lessons there. Thank you so much for your time today, and happy practicing, guys. Have a great day.